Good afternoon, everybody. I have an urgent message for everyone in North Carolina. Hurricane Florence will affect each and every one of you. This storm is a monster. It's big and it's vicious. It is an extremely dangerous, life-threatening, historic hurricane. That's why I'm ordering a mandatory state evacuation for our barrier islands. And I'm directing the people of North Carolina to obey local evacuation orders that have already been issued and will be issued along our coast. The waves and the wind this storm may bring is nothing like you've ever seen. Even if you've ridden out storms before, this one is different. Don't bet your life on riding out a monster. If you wait until conditions get bad, it may be too late to get out safely, and you also put first responders at risk. Driving on flooded roads can also be deadly. The time to hope Hurricane Florence away is gone. Our coast is under a hurricane watch, and likely it will take the first strike from Florence. Strong, damaging winds and torrential rain will stretch far inland. Rain in some places will be measured in feet, not inches. Wherever you are in North Carolina, get ready for Florence now. Last night, the President granted my request for a federal disaster declaration so that federal funding and resources can come quickly for North Carolina. We want you to make sure that you're ready for extended rain and wind, and we cannot expect this storm to blow over in a matter of hours. In fact, this forecast shows Florence stalling over North Carolina, bringing days and days of rain to some areas. Utilities say expect to lose power for several days and maybe longer. Know that the storm surge will inundate low-lying areas. Rivers will flood their banks. Preparation is our best defense. And if you haven't already, the time to prepare is now. We're fortunate to have a strong team in place for preparing for this storm. We have Public Safety Secretary Eric Hooks to my right. To my immediate right, we have Emergency Management Director Mike Sprayberry. To my immediate left in the back is Secretary Jim Trogdon, our Secretary of Transportation. We also have Colonel Glenn McNeil, the commander of the North Carolina Highway Patrol. And we have Adjutant General of the North Carolina National Guard, Major General Greg Lusk, who's here with us. And Monica McGee is providing our interpreting today. North Carolina's outstanding emergency responders are working 24 hours a day to be ready. I'm going to recognize Mike Sprayberry, the Emergency Management Director, to give you some more specific details about what we're doing. Mike?
Thank you, Governor. I'll be short. First of all, I just want to say that everyone needs to heed the evacuation orders that have been issued by their local jurisdictions and by the governor. I would say do it today, especially those with medical support needs. Do it today. I would also tell you that the State Emergency Operations Center remains activated at a 24-hour basis. We're here with all of our state emergency response team partners, and that our federal agency, the FEMA agency, is here in full support. They've stood up an incident support base at Fort Bragg with commodities. Urban search and rescue teams are incoming along with swiftwater rescue teams. So we're getting more resources all the time to be prepared beginning tomorrow when we'll have to engage in the response. Finally, I'd just like to say that this storm is going to be unprecedented. It will have an unprecedented effect for the citizens and visitors in North Carolina. Take it seriously. Heed the evacuation orders. Thank you very much.
Now I want to recognize the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, Jim Trogdon, to give us a little briefing about what's happening with the department. Secretary Trogdon.
Yes, thank you, Governor. North Carolina Department of Transportation is readying our crews across the state. We have approximately 2,100 people that will be responding to this storm. Multitudes of equipment, about 1,200 trucks, 1,000 chainsaws, excavators, signs, great sign inventory to make sure we can establish detours where we need to. And we're also doing things like providing support to emergency management for unmanned aerial systems or drones. We have the only unmanned aerial system or drone traffic management capability in the state, so we'll be supporting the Division of Emergency Management with that kind of response. Our ferry crews have been supporting evacuation on all of the barrier islands. They'll continue that through tomorrow morning, and then we'll be mooring all of those vessels for the storm to pass. We're also establishing a hub of support in eastern North Carolina at the Global Trans Park. That will be supporting both state response and federal response with supplies, boat rescue, medical supplies, all of the things that we need, as well as an incident command. We'll be supporting that effort there. And that concludes my update. Thank you.
We're also grateful to have the members of the North Carolina Highway Patrol. We are counting on them. We've activated National Guard troops, and both Commander McNeil and General Lusk are here to answer questions about that. We want to tell people and remind people to gather your supplies that you need and follow evacuation orders and make sure you monitor weather forecasts. Remember, if you haven't gathered these already, you need enough supplies for several days, including food, water, flashlights, batteries, needed medication, and pet supplies. North Carolinians are strong, and we are resilient. We will get through this. We've weathered tough hurricanes before, and we will do it again. Any of us is available to answer any questions that you might have. Yes, sir.
Governor, it seems like South Carolina has ordered evacuations deeper into the state. Can you speak a little bit to what they're doing versus what we're doing? They're also reversing interstates. I don't believe we're doing that. Why is that?
Our system is different from South Carolina. Our local governments make decisions on evacuations, and there are a number of local evacuation orders that have been issued and will continue to be issued. Many of them will be further inland, particularly as we know where the hurricane will go and where inland areas may flood. The state, to our knowledge, has never issued an evacuation order. This is the first one of its kind, and I am issuing it for the barrier islands. We believe that most of the local governments on the barrier islands will issue evacuation orders, but we think this storm is so fierce that we need the added incentive of a state evacuation order to make sure that these people on the barrier islands leave and to make sure that people are evacuated. And as for evacuations and the Department of Transportation, I may let Secretary Trogdon answer this, but we want to make sure that people get out and make sure that the roads are safe and open for them to do so. The Department of Transportation is working to make sure that that happens, along with our highway patrol. I think our highway system is different from South Carolina's, but what I might do here is ask Secretary Trogdon to address this question too.
Thank you, Governor. Yeah, unlike Charleston area, and we're in coordination with both South Carolina and Virginia, but unlike Charleston, really high density population there that's only served by one major facility. In eastern North Carolina, all the way from Brunswick County up to Morehead City, we have lots of evacuation route alternatives with a much more dispersed population. All of our routes are green. And we've also flexed additional motorist assistance patrols to make sure that we're responding to vehicles that may be slowing down or broken down. So all of our routes are green. We're going to continue to monitor, but we believe with this kind of lead time, our existing facilities and infrastructure will support our evacuation needs.
And then if I could just ask a follow-up and clarify something. I believe there's something called the CRESS, the Coastal Regional Evacuation Plan. Has that not been activated yet, and will it be activated? Is that on the table here?
Yes, sir. That's the Coastal Regional Shelter and Evacuation Plan, just like you're talking about, and it has been activated, and we've been working with our eastern counties and our central branch counties to effect that. So folks that are evacuating to the west, we try to make sure that they have a place to evacuate to.
Elena from ABC 11, I'm kind of piggyback off of what he was saying. I have two questions. Here in Raleigh, we're supposed to get a good amount of rain, and you also talked about the storm stalling inland. So first, is Raleigh far enough west or far enough east for folks to evacuate? And also, is there an inland evacuation plan?
Right. So let me see if I understand the question. So is Raleigh far enough west for people to evacuate to? Okay. You know, we think so. And so where we're going to put them in shelters in Raleigh, we think that in fact, it's a requirement that we don't have a shelter that's in the floodplain. And so we would make sure that it's not around creeks and rivers that would flood. And what was the second part of the question?
Inland evacuation plan, Tarboro, I mean, these were communities that were really underwater after Matthew.
Right. So oftentimes you will find counties like Edgecombe County and where Tarboro is located, they will have their own internal sheltering capacity for riverine flooding. And we do think that the Tar has a high possibility of flooding like most of the rivers in the east. But we can also surge to the west to find other shelters as needed.
Yes, sir. Here. Okay.
Thank you. Calling quickly with CBS 17. If you can, you've really been asking people to evacuate now. Why is it so important they do that now rather than once the water gets higher, especially the danger of what could be in those floodwaters?
Well, first, we know that this storm surge will be significant. So we need people to evacuate now to make sure they have the time to get where they need to be. One thing about North Carolinians is that we're helping each other, and we know that friends and family are accepting people who are coming west. We know some people are going out of state and some people are staying in hotels. But it is important for them to go ahead and get out now. This storm is getting nearer and nearer. We will be experiencing tropical force winds at some point. So people need to get out now. We don't want everybody leaving at once. And we think people are doing a pretty good job of this. But one of the reasons that I issued the evacuation order for the Barrier Islands is to make sure people understand that this is not a storm that you need to try and ride out. It is one of those storms that is historic and maybe once in a lifetime. And I know that we North Carolinians are a hardy bunch, and we've seen nor'easters and we've seen hurricanes before, but this one is different. And we want to make sure that people know that, because they are risking their lives when they stay. They're also risking the lives of first responders, although in many instances on these barrier islands, there may be no way to get to them for some period of time.
Governor or Mr. Sprayberry, there are a lot of low-lying areas that have dealt with flooding from Floyd, from Matthew, and a lot of those, and some of these communities are low income. Yep. Might be difficult for people to actually move to higher ground. Are there things in place that are designed to help them, or is it more just the municipalities or the counties are just gonna have to foot the bill to move these people?
One of the things that we've done is more mapping of potential flooding so that we will be able to work with the local governments to help them be able to predict where flooding will be so that they can tell people to move from those low-lying areas. And the idea is to have those shelters available to people on higher ground. And no matter what their income, we want people out of places that may be flooding. Mike, if you wanted to.
Sir, I think you hit it.
Okay. Any other questions people have? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Actually, as a follow-up to your statewide mandatory order, could you explain, when you say barrier islands, there's a lot of them out there, could you be more
Yep.
specific?
Well, it is specified in the order, but any of the barrier islands that are from the Virginia border all the way down to the South Carolina,
All the way
all of the barrier islands, yes. All right, we will be back. Let you know when.
There's one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
What's the risk of flooding in the Raleigh area itself, and what's being done to mitigate that?
Okay, Mike, I'll let you take that one.
The question again, please, ma'am.
What's the risk of flooding in the Raleigh area itself, and what's being done to mitigate it?
So, as you know, it floods frequently here in Raleigh around places like Crabtree Creek, and so we work with our local partners to map those risks, and I'm quite sure that they'll be putting out information at the local level to ensure that the folks that live in Wake County will be aware of any types of flooding risk. We work with them as well.
But the assumption is that things will flood.
You know, there's going to be a lot of rain, so I typically don't go on assumptions, but I do try to prepare and plan. And so I would tell everybody that we're looking at a tremendous amount of precipitation. You've seen the weather reports just like me, up to 20 inches or more. I think that would be a fair assumption. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Get that. Yes, sir.
Was there consideration to evacuate New Hanover, Pender, Brunswick County, some of these higher populated areas? Was there discussion about that, and is that something that still could take place?
Those were local decisions that have been made traditionally in North Carolina. We worked with them and advised them. Mike, I might want to let you, you've been talking with them directly.
Those decisions have been made, and those evacuations are ongoing.
Okay, thanks guys, we'll be back.